Hi, I'm David Dane Hastings, and welcome to D'Artagnan's Gym Part 3. It's all in the wrist. When you hear somebody say, it's all in the wrist, what they're really talking about is something that requires fine motor skills. Instead of using the entire limb, the shoulder, the elbow, and the wrist, a lot of sword work is fine motor skills. Your fingers, your wrist, and your forearms. So today we're going to work a little bit on those fine motor skill muscles. The great thing about working with your hands is that you don't need weights to exercise them. If you isolate each digit, you are not only working on isolation, but you are working on strength. If you do enough of these repetitions, you will start to feel more confident in your isolations, and you'll also be strengthening your hands. Mimes really work on isolation, isolating each and every single joint, and it is extremely hard work. So work each digit in isolation, and then after that you can start working on more coordinating all of the joints together, and then start working with the wrist. But start first with isolation of each individual digit, and then working in coordination, and then working with the wrist. Again, this is also incorporating the forearm. Okay, so what I have here is a little makeshift forearm exerciser. So what I've done is I have a stick right here, just picked up out of the backyard, just a bit of string, rope, and then I've tied it to a larger piece of wood right here, and there's a little bit of slack in between. But truthfully, you could use anything cylindrical. You could even use a screwdriver, a pencil if you're not lifting anything heavy. You could use a gallon of milk or a 6-pack of soda or whatever. Just some kind of weight that you will have to lift. And I'll show you in a second how I use these together. So I've got my weight, and I've got my slack of cordage wrapped around the cylinder. So I'm going to put this weight on the ground. So I'm going to hold my arms out, and the weight is hanging freely. And then I'm going to turn my wrists one at a time and start bringing the weight up. So I'm also engaging my core and my deltoids. We talked about the deltoids being the shoulder muscles, but I'm also working my wrists and my forearms. And I come all the way up to the very top, and then slowly I have the negative movement down. Obviously down I've got gravity on my side. I don't want it just to go and flop down on the ground. Unroll it one piece at a time. And then when it's all the way down, I reverse it. And I just curl it all the way up. Again, these muscles are the smaller muscles of my forearm and my hands, my grip, right, my wrists. These are all things that we're really going to use when we're doing those fine motor skills in swordplay. One thing you can do to help with your grip strength is if you have a ball, a racquetball, tennis ball, something that has a little bit of give to it but has firm shape to it. This is one of the balls that I have on a string that I use for punching drills. I'm going to grip it in my hand, and I'm going to squeeze as hard as I can and then release. Your muscles don't have to do very much. All it needs to do is tense and have tension and then release. So your muscles will activate and then loosen up, and activate and loosen up. And then if you have enough repetitions of this, you will start to feel it in your forearm, which is going to build up your forearm strength. Another great exercise for your wrist and your forearm and your grip is if you have a pole or a staff or a broom handle. What I want to do is I want to hold it in one hand, and I'm just going to let it creep up the staff. Now, going in one direction is fine and dandy. It's going down, 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 down. But going the opposite direction, trying to creep your hand up, that's brutal. So that'll work those muscles. And it is not very easy. Going up is a lot slower than coming down. Obviously, you've got gravity on your side. So moving slowly, inch by inch, going up. Boy, this is a long staff. So keep working that, and by the end of this one, your forearm and your grip are going to have a real workout. And at last, we come to getting the weapon in your hand. Now again, use your sword substitute, whatever you have. I'm going to have my sword here. And these are some of the exercises you might have seen in Rod Kinter's videos, the sword drills. If I extend that rapier out in pronation and I have my finger on top of the ricasso, I have a little bit more accuracy. And then I can start by doing small circles clockwise. And then I can spiral outward, making them larger and larger, really trying to concentrate on using just the wrist. And then larger and larger, bigger and bigger, bigger and bigger, wider and wider. And then what I could do is I could start to make those spirals smaller and smaller, smaller and smaller, until I'm making very tiny circles. And then I can do like a V, practicing my coupes, my preparation for point attack. Right? I can do chevron, which is just the opposite. It's like a pointy mountain. So I can do chevrons, V's, chevrons, right? And then I can turn into supination and do this all over again. Small circles, tiny, tiny, tiny. Again, larger and larger and larger, right? Bigger and bigger and bigger. Trying to concentrate just on the wrist and the forearm, spiraling back down, right? And then once again, doing the chevron, doing the V, practicing my coupe in the low line, practicing my coupe in the high line, right? And then I come back to on guard. So those will get a nice good workout. Try it with your left hand. Go and try it with your left hand as well, keeping both sides fine-tuned. In addition to the sword drills with the circles, the chevrons and the coupes, the V's, I can also practice my circular and counter parries. Again, I can parry, and then from the elbow and from the wrist I can do my counter parries. So big circles, big circles. What I like about doing this in isolation is it really practices for those times where you have a doublé in your choreography, where you have to have this nice tight circle to have that nice picture of the deception of parry, right? So you need to have that be nice and neat so the audience gets the real sense of the skill of the person who's deceiving your parry. So your parry needs to be pristine in order for the audience to really see what the other person is doing. So practicing these will help not only strengthen your wrist and your forearms, but also will help you be more precise when you're executing some of those finer sequences like doublés, deceptions of parry. And now finally, cutting. There are three joints from which the cut can originate: the shoulder, the elbow, and the wrist. So you can start by doing some cuts from the shoulder, right? From the shoulder. Then you can go from the elbow, from the elbow, from the elbow, from the elbow, and then finally from the wrist. I come around, I go wrist, 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 wrist. So putting your hand where the cut is originating from may help you. I kind of tend to keep it on my elbow so I can know exactly where it is in front of my body. Notice with the elbow and the wrist cuts, my elbow is really not moving very much from this location. It's staying out in front of me here, whether I do the wrist cut or whether I do the elbow cut. So there you have it, D'Artagnan's Gym Part 3. It's all in the wrist. Work on some of those exercises and your sword work will be finer and cleaner, smaller, and just all around better. All right, well, be well. And what I want to do is I want to hold it from the top at first and then try and push this up. It's not as easy as it looks. And your grip are going to have a real workout. Oh, I'll be here next week doing this.